Today, I am joined by a singer, songwriter, producer, Data Squad GX leader, Shinigami. Thank you so much for being here. And, tell the people what you do, just to get a soft start on this.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Of course.
But yeah, I think you got it. You got it down. I write, produce, sing. I also do like digital art stuff and edit videos out of necessity.
Out of necessity.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And to kick things off, we can kind of start in chronological order a little bit. Traveling back in time to tracks like Sanctuary, Sprites, This Is a Simulation, with the really early tracks where you're making this sort of trancey lo-fi trap. And I know that even earlier you're experimenting with electronic and dubstep as well. So what is the starting point and the initial goal for Shinigami as a musician? What got you into this?
I would say I think it was kind of like a lifelong dream of mine, to be honest. Because growing up, I played drums because my great grandfather, my grandfather, and my uncle all played drums. And yeah, my great grandfather was in like jazz bands. My grandpa was in like hair metal bands.
Nice.
And then my uncle, when I was like really young, was in like a couple of like deathcore bands. So like when I would go to my grandma's house growing up, I would just like go crazy on the drums. I would just like put headphones on and try to learn songs that I liked. I would sit in there for like 2 hours. Yeah, and just like imagine myself on stage and shit.
Yeah.
And like I never thought that, I would be able to really do it because growing up, like I lived in apartments. So like I didn't really have space for a drum kit or anything. The only access to a drum kit I had was like at my grandma's house. And then eventually when I got older, they moved like down south. And yeah, so my introduction to, I guess, like learning that you can make music on a computer was through Skrillex. I remember very, very specifically. It was like bring your kids to work day at my dad's job. And like, he brought me and like my sister. And then, so like, I was like hanging out with like his coworkers' kids. And one of them was like around my age. I think he was like a little bit older. I was probably like, this was like 2010 ish. Yeah. So I was like 10 or 11. And we were just like showing each other like videos on YouTube, and he was like, "Oh, I want to show you the song," and he showed me, oh my God, which one was it? It wasn't Scary Monsters. It was First of the Year, and I was like, at that time, that was when I was like super like metalhead, like anything that's not that is like trash, and it's like, it's not real music,
Yeah.
kind of vibe.
We've all been there.
Yeah, so I heard it, and my first reaction was like, "What the fuck is this? Like, this is so stupid." Like, I didn't say that obviously, but like in my head, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know about that," And then he kept playing it, and then he kept like he was like showing like his dad and like my dad and like the adults, and they were like, "Wow, kids these days," type of, you know what I mean? Like, wow, like, you guys listen to this, And so I remember like I went home, and like it just kind of did something to my brain, because like at first I really didn't like it, and this is kind of like a recurring thing for me, and I'm pretty sure it's for a lot of people with music is like, a lot of times you're exposed to something you're not familiar with, and your gut reaction is to not like it because you don't understand.
It's different.
Yeah, and that was like what it's like. I feel like that was very, very different from like any music that existed prior. I know obviously like dubstep and stuff had origins like way, way before that, but that particular strain, was very new at the time as well. And, obviously new to me. So it kind of sat in my mind a little bit. And then I don't know. I just kind of became enamored with it. And like, I wanted to understand like how he made it out of like morbid curiosity. And then I just like, I realized that I actually liked it. And I realized that, to be honest, like it reminded me a lot of metal, like
Yeah.
in terms of like, it's heavy, you can kind of headbang to it, you know, it's loud. And once I was in, I was in. Like it was like no turning back, you know? And I was like, no, now I'm gonna be an EDM DJ, you know?
Hell
Like,
yeah.
um, so like that that Christmas, um, I asked for a laptop and my parents got me a laptop. And the first the first program that I used was like, I think it's I don't remember what it's called. It's like Mixcraft or something like that.
Mixcraft was the first DAW that I used as well.
Yeah. Okay, sick.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like kind of fake, you know, but it was like, I don't remember. I think maybe it was because it was free and it was just easy to get, I
Hmm.
think. Um but yeah, that didn't last very long because I was just like there was no like tutorials for it for like what I was trying to do anyway, you know. And then my dad actually had FL like on his computer on like when I was like a kid, like my dad like tried to learn to make beats. So like my dad is the one that was like, why don't you try Fruity Loops? And I was like, all right, like I'll just like torrent it, I guess. And because my dad like was like worked with computers and stuff, so he always like taught me how to like steal shit, you know.
Nice. There you go.
And he also, it's just that just reminded me. I have it at my house. He, I don't know if he printed it out or if someone printed it out for him and gave it to him. But he has a FL Studio Bible. It's like
Really?
this big, and it's just like a you know a manual for FL, and it's like laminated and shit. Like it's definitely not like official at all. But like I don't know why or how. Um, but yeah, it's just this giant FL Studio Bible, and I have it now. Um, never read it, but like, it's cool to have.
And no, it's just cool to have. It's like you know, it's sort of a relic in a way. Back when you
Yeah,
kind of had to do that stuff.
yeah, because there just like wasn't a lot of tutorials, probably, or at least probably not a lot of good ones, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I was 12 when I first started using FL Studio, and like from there, it was a wrap.
Nice.
It was just every day.
Yeah, and so you know, you have this sort of like eclectic sphere of influence, like kind of like meeting like at your grandmother's house. You know, your dad had had a FL introduce you to all this stuff, and so of course you're getting into these styles, and you're kind of going in a couple different directions with your music, at least when you first start posting it publicly. And so I know that you've kind of gone into whatever genre that you can at this point. You know, you have the lullaby inspired lo-fi, you have metalcore songs. You know, how do you think that your sort of aversion to pinning down a concrete sound has impacted your music and impacted your art over the years?
I would say that it's a double-edged sword because like now I would say that I'm after like years and years of doing that. I think it's kind of led me to like really want to try to focus on one thing because I never really did that, you
Mm-hmm.
know? I think it was just because like, you know, I think I have like, you know, a lot of like oppositional reactions to things and like expectations, you know? So like when I first started like singing, like it was just, I just wanted to try something new. I kind of always wanted to do it, but I was scared. And like, I didn't understand how like you came up with like vocal melodies. And like one day, like I had this beat and like it just like the ghost melody just like came to me in my head, and I was like, okay, now I understand, like because I'm hearing it, so like I'm gonna just do it. And I think like once it started like working out, I guess you could say, and people started to like demand things of me,
Mm-hmm.
and like I know that like hindsight is always 2020, and
Of
I just
course.
I don't think that I was really like prepared for that like when it happened, but I just like had a very like honestly negative reaction to it because like I was never like planning in my head of like that necessarily being my thing. It was just like that's what I was fucking with at the time, you know?
Yeah.
But like I always had like other goals and like other things that I wanted to try to do, like, you know, like making like full band shit and like, you know, just continuing to experiment. And yeah, so when people started to have those kind of expectations of me, it kind of made me like defiant.
Yeah.
In a way. So I think that was kind of the root of it. Just kind of to be like, oh, like you think I can only do this, but I could actually do this too.
Yeah.
And I think also it's just like I'm like all over the place. Like genuinely, like I'm just my brain is all over the place, like all the time. And like I get bored really, really easily. So it's like if I hear the same shit like way too much, I just get sick of it. And I feel like I can't like I feel like it's gotta be like some type of like OCD thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like now the more that I'm like, you know, cause like now I'm like going to therapy and stuff and trying to like take care of my brain, you know, I'm starting to realize these patterns that I have of like, it's like this like feeling. And if it doesn't like feel right, like, I know that that's not particularly uncommon with like making music or making art, but it's like, it feels like I physically cannot, like as soon as I'm like sick and tired of something, like I physically cannot continue doing it. Or
Yeah,
like it feels like torture. Like it feels like mental torture.
Yeah.
And I'm working on it and I'm getting a lot better at like recognizing that like sometimes those feelings are not real, you know? Because like I said, I do think that like there is, you know, there's the positive of like, you know, experimenting is that like I have a wide range of, you know, skills. I feel like when it comes to music that I can, you know, take certain things from different things that I've done and kind of apply, or like things that I've learned, techniques that I've learned from, you know, making different styles and like apply it to a different style. But I also think that like, you know, now I'm thinking a lot more of, you know, the listener's perspective, like not in a sense of like, I'm, you know, I'm only going to do like what I'm trying to do what people want from me. It's more so like, you know, I really value the people that listen to my music. I would literally not be able to do what I'm doing without them.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I used to be like I feel like I was kind of selfish. Like I'm making music for me. And like, if you don't like it, you don't like it. And I mean, like, I still feel that way to a certain extent. But also I feel like that's going too deep into that mentality. I feel like is just not good, because at the end of the day, I think there has to be a balance.
Yeah. And I think that you bring up a really good point with like, sort of like, you know, you have this like sort of point of contention with whatever demand that you think there is for like your music and your art. And, you know, at kind of having, you know, acting in defiance because of that. You know, and I know that the underground specifically, and independent music specifically, sort of cultivates an environment where a lot of artists are spotlighted and pushed up at a very young age. And, you know, how do you think that sort of impacted, you know, sort of like, you know, whatever path you were taking in life, whether it be your life or your art specifically, you know, where you're having these songs blow up, get hundreds of thousands of millions of plays before you're even an adult?
I would say that it's really weird. It's really weird. And it's like, yeah, like kind of like what I was saying before, like, I don't think that I was ready. I don't think anyone really is like ever ready unless you're like a media trained, like, you know, working with a label and a team before your shit even comes out. And like, you're, you know, literally trained for all those things. Like, and you know, that even comes with like, you know, like doing interviews or like, or your public, you know, what you say publicly, like I didn't have any of that, you know? So it's like, I had to like stumble many times to like realize like, oh, like I probably shouldn't say this.
Yeah.
Or maybe I probably shouldn't talk about this, or maybe, and you know, sometimes I still struggle with it. Like, you know, something that is kind of like a bad habit of mine is like, if I'm like stressed out, like, you know, luckily now, like I do it on my like private Twitter. So like, at least it's like not on my like main one that I'm like posting on for business, I guess you could say. But like, even then I just feel like it's kind of like an unhealthy coping method that I developed. from knowing that I have an audience, and it's kind of twisted. Like, to be honest, like it's kind of twisted, and it's something that I'm, actively working on, because it's like I didn't know, like, all these like new feelings that were, coming from music, that like I didn't have any like mentor or like anyone else with a different point of reference, like, to help me, because everyone around me at the time was also, it was new to them too. So it was like, obviously it was helpful to talk to other people that are in similar situations, but they didn't really have the answers. So I kind of just developed a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms and like unhealthy brain, unhealthy thought cycles. Like, just like it goes from like one thing and then it spirals, and then it's like it goes from like, oh wow, I can't make a song, or like, oh, like someone doesn't like, someone left a nasty comment on my song, and then like it sticks in my head.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, maybe it's real. Like, maybe it's real, and or the worst thing is if someone says like something that maybe I'm already insecure about, that like I don't talk about.
It like
I
reinforces that already.
Yeah. So I'm like, holy fuck, like other people see it too, like, oh fuck, like, and then it just like kind of would like spiral.
Yeah.
But not to get too off base of your question, I would say that like,
good.
I would say that, I don't look at it fully as like a negative thing. Obviously I do think it was super weird. But I think that, I wouldn't change anything, obviously, that's happened, but, I would say that it was, I definitely went through some growing pains, and I feel a lot more, like I can handle it better.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I feel like it's taken me probably, like the past like 3 years, I've been just trying to do a lot of work on like, myself as a person, because, inadvertently music also obviously affected my personal life too, because, like my, the people that were around me, were all kind of related to music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you don't have that separation, things can get really even weirder.
In a way, it kind of creates almost like an echo chamber.
Yeah, exactly. And like when I started to notice that like a few years ago. And I feel like that's kind of why like I kind of withdrew a little bit. And I think also like, getting into a relationship, like I've been with my girlfriend for 3 years, and it's it's honestly like just being with her and like spending time with her, and like, she's kind of like, cause when we first met, like things had kind of happened personally with things related to music. And I kind of, like withdrew a bit. And like, I was very, very shut in. Like I was just like not trying to like meet people. I was like not making friends. Besides like, like my friends that like, I've been friends with since I was like in high school, and a handful of people like through music. But for the most part, I kind of just went back into my shell, I feel like. And like, she definitely helped me just experience kind of like a more normal life, because before that it was just like I'm going to LA all the time and like sleeping on people's couches, and like I was still staying with my parents, and then like I moved out the year that like we met. And like at that time, like I didn't really have that many friends in New York. All my friends were kind of in LA at the time. So I was just really lonely, and I didn't really, I knew how to navigate social situations that were related to music, because like I was doing it a lot, and like it's a little bit easier, obviously, if like you're going into a situation where like people kind of know who you are. So like I wasn't as anxious, but then like when it came to just like meeting people that were not related to music whatsoever, I had a really hard time with it. So I'm super grateful for her, and like, just helping me kind of get back to earth a little bit.
Yeah, so you can kind of like view that sort of like environment of music from like a third person perspective now, rather than being in the middle of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we've we kind of have like sort of built a timeline at this point of influences, sort of like engagement and withdrawal from music and that sort of environment. But maybe on a more localized level, we've talked about the dubstep, the EDM influence, as well as like the lo-fi and the metalcore. But how did growing up in like Jersey and having that sort of Jersey music scene around you affect your art? Because I know that you're very much into Jersey Devil. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yeah. It's funny because like growing up, I didn't realize like how cool New Jersey was, to be honest. And I mean, some people might not feel that way, but I don't give a shit. I'm really proud to be where I'm from. I love going back home. I go back home like 2 or 3 times a month to visit my family. And like, see my friends and just kind of walk around, and I love it, and I think it was super influential because there's a lot of, heavy music scenes that were kind of in the area. I mean, there still is, don't get me wrong. There definitely still is. I'm not really involved with that currently. But there's this one band that I am like, well, first of all, couple bands that came from New Jersey that are very iconic. The Misfits. My parents live in the town that the Misfits are from.
Nice.
They went to
Shout out
high
Misfits.
school.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's pretty sick. And then also My Chemical Romance.
Of course.
And there's a bunch of other Dillinger Escape Plan. Trying to think. There's a bunch, but the main one that I have been very obsessed with currently is E-Town Concrete, and they were kind of like a hardcore band, but they were. I feel like they were kind of like proto nu metal, because like the singer would rap, and then also it would get heavy, obviously, and like I remember like growing up, like my uncles were super into them, and like them and their friends would go to their shows and stuff like that. I remember I was just talking to my uncle, and he saw E-Town and Killswitch Engage in New Jersey in like 2007. And I was like, fuck, like, that's crazy. Like, what? Like,
it's just like a legendary show.
Yeah, there's a bunch of other crazy bands on the lineup too that I'm forgetting. But yeah, so and my dad was telling me because when I started, I got more, into them like super recently, like probably like around like a year ago. Like, it's fun. It's funny because the lead singer, he's like a fucking like multi-millionaire now, which is insane because like he came from like a very, very like poor area in New Jersey that's like kind of bad.
Yeah.
It was, or at least it was back then. I don't know how it is now. But yeah, so he came up crazy. He managed Tyga. He managed Lil D. Yeah, it's crazy. And so I saw an article. And listen, I'm not judging nobody. I'm just saying this because this is how I was reminded of their existence.
Okay.
So I guess he was involved with that like AI rapper that like.
Oh, no way.
Like, yeah, which I'm like, all right, he's got to be like probably like 40 something, and he probably just whatever.
Maybe he's just out of touch.
Yeah, I'm not gonna judge him, but so I saw that and I was like, E-Town Concrete. I remember that. My uncles really liked that band. And then I was like, I went and listened to their shit. And I was like, that was also the time that I was getting, back into starting to listen to heavy music again, getting particularly into like nu metal. And I was like, this is so fucking sick. And because it's like a very different take on it, than like Korn or like, a lot of those bands that were kind of known in the genre. And then I found his Instagram, and it turns out that he like DM'd me in like 2019, and I fucking missed it.
No
I did not
way.
answer. Yeah, and then I messaged him back, and I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't see this. Like, your band is crazy. Like, very like Jersey legends. Like, and he was like, nah, dude, like it's okay, I get it. Like, whatever. And we were kind of like shooting the shit back and forth a little bit.
Yeah.
And then my fucking Instagram got like banned for whatever reason. I still don't know why, but. Yeah, I lost contact with him. I tried to DM him on my new account, and he didn't. He doesn't know that it's me.
Well, if you're watching this video, get back in contact with Shinigami.
I'm gonna go to if they play a show sometime soon in the area. Like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna make this happen because like they're dropping new music. Like they haven't dropped music I think in like 16 years.
Since like 2004, 7 maybe, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and so I think that we've very much established that, like, the music that you grew up listening to, the music you listen to now, the music you make, it spans a very large sphere. And so now that we've kind of established that, we've talked about your familiarity with all these different genres. Whether, no matter what sound it is, what is, I guess, your general creative process? How is a Shinigami track made? What's the factory looking like?
Right now, it's very, I would say it's wildly inconsistent, not necessarily in a bad way.
Okay.
I would say that, like, I was kind of talking about this, like, on Twitter a couple days ago, where, like, I feel like for a while my, like if I was just like, if I didn't have any particular ideas, if I was just like, I want to make music and I don't really know what I want to make, I would just like kind of make like a trap beat or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of just like, I personally just got sick of getting on those types of beats because like, I just literally started running out of ideas. Like genuinely, I just like started running out of ideas. Like I had made so much stuff that just like never came out too. So it's like, not only, I know that I have a pretty high output of music. So it's like that compounded with all of the songs that like no one has ever heard. I just got really burnt out on it. And like, I would say like I really started struggling with that like a year ago where like, I just like didn't know what to make because like, I was like, I'm sick of this. But I also feel like, I kind of, it's very wishy-washy with me when it comes to like inspiration where it's like, I have periods where like I don't make anything for like a while and then like I like will have like a crazy just burst.
Yeah.
And like I used to have a higher output of just like making stuff and like making stuff every day. But I feel like that kind of led to me just, like I said, just kind of getting really burnt out. And I realized that that's honestly like not sustainable. Mm-hmm. And like, I had struggles of like, oh, like I'm not making as much music as I used to. And like, I used to be so like tapped in and like, it felt so crazy. And like, but then like I go back and listen to a lot of the stuff from that time and like, it's honestly not that good. Like it's like, I don't think it aged very well.
Okay.
So like, fair. I'm glad that this didn't come out, and I think that like, when you get into that like mode of like, it's like I wasn't going outside. I wasn't really doing anything else besides like making music and playing video games. So I was just like, it was kind of like I created like an echo chamber of myself in my own room where I'm like hyping myself up and getting, and which can be good, but I think it's also like kind of dangerous. Like it's a dangerous game because it's like, you can't always trust, like you can't always trust yourself, honestly. Like, like I think that, I used to be very like, if I like it, then that's all that matters and whatever, blah, 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 blah. But like, I realized that, I would really like something. And then like a couple months later, I'd be like, this is kind of whatever, which is okay. But then I've also had times where I made something, kind of forgot about it, listened to it a few months later. And I was like, this is the fucking shit. Like, this is really dope. I'm going to finish this and like do something with it. So I know that like, that's not always a good gauge. And it's like at the moment when I maybe made that idea, I wasn't really feeling it that much. Yeah. So like, I feel like it's not, those kind of feelings sometimes are not always trustworthy in terms of like, if you actually want to make something of quality. So I feel like now it's like, it really just kind of starts with like me hearing something in a song that I like, or, I have like some hardware synthesizers that I play with, and I try to just like, I try to do anything that I can to not just like start the song with a blank FL project. Okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's like, if I just have a blank FL project and I just open a synth and I click through sounds and it's just like an empty piano roll, like I can't do it anymore. Like, it's like, sometimes I start with, I've been sampling a lot where like I've been using the like AI like stem extraction shit to like take music like chord
like
elements.
isolating it.
Yeah, and then like I'll put a bunch of shit on it, put like, you know, a bunch of effects and like kind of resample that over and over again to get a certain kind of texture. I guess I'm more after like in, you know, rather than like a really catchy melody or like, you know, something like that, I'm more into textures and achieving certain textures and artifacts
Yeah.
through like, you know, different types of like manipulation. And then also like, you know, I've been making a lot of heavy stuff and like learning to play guitar again. I kind of learned.
Was it Downpour where you did all of the instruments, or was that
Downpour? I was all programmed.
uh-huh. The guitars were synthesized?
Yeah.
No shit,
Yeah.
really? They
Yeah.
sound great.
Yeah, I got really comfortable with and thank you, by the way.
Oh yeah, no problem.
I got really comfortable doing that. But I like, it was kind of like, you know, because anytime that I would do a rock song, it's like, it's so much more work, like genuinely, like it's so much more work, and it's really annoying to mix it. And like, that kind of turned me off from like sticking with it for a while. So I was like, okay, like I can get by like every once in a while if I have the itch to like just program it. And then like after Downpour, I was like, you know, I'm listening to a lot of heavy music again. That's just like, it's just always kind of comes back to me. And like, I want to make it really good. And like, I want to get better. And I feel like I'm not just going to get better by just like programming it. I feel like I kind of reached like a ceiling, and,
Yeah.
you know, it also kind of made me a little bit insecure, because I'm like, I can't play this ever. Like, I'm not going to, like, that song in particular, I'm not going to say I'm never going to be able to play it, but like, I can't play that right now.
Yeah,
like, it's just not, like, that's a very like complex riff. You know, a lot of it is like a lot of, you know, it's a lot of complex riff.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, I felt like kind of like a faker a little bit, you know, I'm like a little bit of an imposter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like I went, you know, I got my guitar, which has been sitting in the fucking case for like 4 years. And I was like, I'm just going to figure it out, you know, because I was like, all right, like the main thing that I'm kind of trying to do is like, I'm not really set on making like metalcore. I'm really into like new metal and like hardcore at the moment, which like, I'm like, I feel like I can play that, you know, not to say that it's easy to play, but it's just like in comparison, I feel like metalcore still kind of echoes a lot of the sentiments of like 80s metal, of like, you have to flex on the guitar, you know, and like the solos, and it's yeah. So I was like, I know I can do something, and I'm going to get better, obviously. So I spent like, after I had made Downpour, like I spent the whole summer basically just like practicing and like trying to get better. And like I had the same strings on my guitar from when I bought it, and I
no way. They're not just like fucked.
No, because I never really, I think I used it on a couple songs, but I never used it on anything like heavy, because like I didn't really know how to like record it. And I didn't really, you know, I was still using, at that time when I got the guitar, I think I was still using like Guitar Rig, which was like kind of shitty, you know?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I got it and I like used it for a little bit. I used it for more like, you know, slower things. And I would just kind of like, you know, make samples with it or whatever. But yeah, just kind of sat there, and I only broke the like top E string. So like everything else was still like the same.
Nice.
And I was telling Billy Martin, I was like, dude, like I keep trying to tune it down to like drop C and it won't stay in tune. And I was like, I've been using, you know, it's the same strings from when I got it. Like, should I change it? And he was like, dude, I change my strings like sometimes like, you know, like every month or every couple months, or I forgot what he said, but you know, much more frequently than and he was like, you need to go. He was like, these are the strings you got to get if you want to tune lower, and you need to go get strings right now. And I was like, okay. So like I went to this like local guitar shop, got some strings, restrung it, and restringed it. I don't know.
Restrung, maybe?
Restrung it. I'm vocabularily challenged. Yeah, so I restrung it, and it fixed the problem. And yeah, and then from there I was just, you know, I just been trying to get better. Just, you know, that's a lot of the times a song starts that way, which is like I'll just make a little drum beat, do a couple riffs, and then it's just like I'll just do a bunch of ideas, and then I'll kind of restructure it after. And then like, sometimes I'll have like, a lot of times I'll take things I'll make like little ideas, like little like 1 minute, like random kind of electronic things, and I'll like put that in as like a beat switch or something. And, it sounds a lot more methodical, but really all it is like me taking like 2 or 3 ideas and then making one song out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely got off on a couple tangents, but
that's so okay.
Yeah, the main way I feel like the songs come together nowadays is like just making a lot of little ideas and then figuring out how to weave them together, because I feel like it sounds more epic that way.
Yeah, and we're gonna do a bit of a blast from the past now, because in 2018 you had an article / kind of interview done on you from the Fader, and they credited you. This is how they described you, and this is how they described your music. Quote: anime-inspired stylings, a deep affection for video games, and pop-punk sensibilities. Out of those 3 sort of accolades that they've given you, which of those do you think that you've carried with you the most since that article 5 years ago?
The article is really funny. I would say definitely like video games, I think, is like the main thing. Like, and like I feel like I kind of got lumped into the like anime shit because like my name is Shinigami, which it's kind of filled me with a bit of deep regret some days. But I was never like, or like when I was younger, I definitely was a weeb, like absolutely. But like, as I got older, I kind of just like, I don't know, I don't really watch anime like that anymore. But I still, I would say video games for sure. Definitely not pop punk. Like I'm not, I don't want to. I know a lot of people really love it, and like there's a couple bands that I still listen to. I think, honestly, the only pop punk band I still listen to is Story So Far.
I respect it.
And I feel like they're almost like, I mean, I don't really know what else you would call them, but I definitely feel like they're like a league above a lot of pop punk bands in terms of like their style and like,
a little more nuanced, maybe.
A little more mature too.
Yeah.
I feel like, a little bit less like I hate my hometown and this girl hurt my feelings type of shit. I can't really listen to that anymore. But yeah, I would say, definitely video game music is still like, I'm still pulling from it just because I feel like there's so much. Because video game music, I feel like, is almost like a disrespectful term, like, to be honest, because it's just like, it's just, I was just being exposed to music that I never heard of because of these things. Like, it was like, I feel like they can almost be kind of, or they are like curators in a sense, because I would have never been exposed to, certain styles, especially of like electronic music, if it wasn't for video games. And, that kind of led me to like, I think also being like, like I would say that the root, like the kind of thing that like triggered my interest in a lot of like other forms of electronic music, especially like earlier forms, like, like ambient stuff and like kind of like downbeat and like drum and bass and garage and stuff like that. That was kind of like how I was exposed to it. But I feel like it's kind of like, if you really enjoy the music, I do think you kind of have a bit of a responsibility to like learn the history of it. And I, it's funny because I remember when I was like a teenager and like, there was like certain, I was obviously around a lot of people that were into like the same music as me. And like, there were certain like, key bands that like I missed that like I didn't give a fuck about. And they were like, how do you not know this band? And I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. Like, and they're like, no, dude, you gotta like, you're doing this, you gotta, and I'm like, dude, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm making this because I like it. Like, I don't care where it came from. Like this is coming from, what I'm making is coming from me. But it's like, obviously now I think of it a lot different. And like I've, it's been a very fun journey kind of going back into history and learning how genres were conceived and how they've evolved. And I feel like it gives you a better context for yourself to where you can add something to it and do something different, But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get that. I mean, I love hip hop, and for a long time, it was just kind of just listening to the genre, taking what I enjoyed, leaving what I didn't, and that was it. And then a couple years back, I kind of started to get more into the history side of things, and it's like, wow, there's a whole new world here that I would have discovered a lot earlier had I not been reluctant to listen to. If I hadn't been reluctant to listen to it beforehand, I just wasn't cherry picking what I enjoyed.
Yeah,
But
yeah, 100%.
I'm glad that you brought up video games, because I know how much they inspire you. I kind of figured out of the three that you would pick them. I kind of set you up a little bit for that.
Yeah.
But I do know that you are working on the soundtrack for 500 caliber contracts. You're working on your own like video game development as well. And so after making so much music that is kind of inspired by video game OSTs, pulling from the sort of like themes and motifs of electronic music in video games, what's it like working on music specifically actually meant for a game, and how does it kind of shift the dynamic and creative process?
I would say, I think when it comes to the 500 caliber contracts, it's kind of like a situation where like, the developer Bryce, he really just like, he likes my music how it is. So like I just been kind of like making stuff like a lot of the heavier stuff that I've been making, I'll just send it to him and be like, you could use this in whatever context that you want to use it. So it feels very like, I think because when I think of this, the things that really inspire me, the soundtracks that really inspire me, one of those being like the Silent Hill 2 soundtrack. Like there's like a behind the scenes video for it if you've never seen it, which is pretty cool. And they show forgot who the main composer was on Silent Hill 2. I think it was Yamaoka, I think. It's escaping me. But yeah, I kind of just like, I feel like the best way to kind of go about it is to just, I feel like if I go into it, it kind of depends. Like for this situation, I think it's like, I'm just trying to make things how I'm currently making them. Yeah. And then kind of just shooting it and then seeing what he likes. And then in terms of the game that I'm working on, it hasn't gotten far enough. It's kind of hit a bit of a stalemate because like my friend that I'm working on it with, he just kind of moved. And it's also kind of, it's kind of the same. We kind of are very similar, and like, it's very on and off. Like we went on like a crazy burst and like got like basically like a tech demo done. He was doing much more of the like technical, like programming and stuff. Cause like I think he learned Unity when he was like 13. It's my friend Ian. And we were kind of just like, I was doing, I designed the main character. We had one main character at first. It was like the little like TV head guy. Yeah. And then that was originally, I was trying to model myself. And then when I put my face texture on, it looked so goddamn ugly that like, I was like, I have to put something over the head. And like, I had this like CRT model that I was going to use for something else. And then I just put it over it. And I was like, okay. Nice. But then like, I was like, I had this other like drawing of this like cat creature thing with like big pants and like tattoos. I just like thought that was really cool. So we like took that drawing and like modeled it together. And then, or he did the majority of the modeling and then I did the texture. So I kind of wanted to retain the like hand drawn kind of look for it. So I did that. And then once we swapped the character and then we made like a different like level, and then we kind of like both got a little bit burnt out and like started doing other stuff. So it hasn't gotten far enough to like start working on the music for it. But I would say like, honestly, it's like, it doesn't really change the process that much because like a lot of this stuff that I make, especially like the like down tempo kind of ambient breaky stuff that was like on Scrapyard, like I'm kind of thinking of that while I'm making it already kind of as it is. Like, and there's a lot of the songs that I make, like I'm like imagining it in a game that I like, or like I'll like, after I'm kind of like done working on it, I'll like put a video on of like a game and like just watch it and like just for my own enjoyment. So I feel like it's already so kind of ingrained in my process of inspiration and like how and why I'm making music that it honestly doesn't really change the process too much. But it definitely is like, it's exciting knowing that like it's going to potentially be in something that people can play, you know?
It's exciting. It's a new medium. It's different. And I've been throwing some pretty heavy hitting questions your way, and trust me, I have quite a few more. But I'm gonna kind of toss you a slow one. Or maybe a really hard one, depending on how passionate you are about this. But musically and gameplay wise separately, so two different questions. Silent Hill or Resident Evil?
Okay. Musically, I'm gonna say Silent Hill, and gameplay, I'm gonna say Resident Evil, because I think I'm not a fan of tank controls. I know it's like some people are like, oh, like if you don't like tank controls, then you really don't like Silent Hill, because like that's, or if you don't really like survival horror, because the original survival horror games were all tank control, and it's like, yeah, but like it sucks. Like,
well, the original survival horror were all tank controls, and the original survival horror were all clunky as hell.
Exactly. Like you go up, like I tried playing, like I was trying to play Silent Hill 2 again like the other day, and like I'm sorry, like I can't. Like it's just so annoying. Like it's like I'm learning, like I hate like having to like learn a whole different, it's one thing learning a different control scheme. It's not that I'm necessarily averse to that, but it's just like it's so dated. Like it's just the control scheme is so fucking dated that like I just like it's annoying. Like it's just really annoying. And I'm excited for the remake, because like I hope that it plays like the Resident Evil 4 remake. Flawless.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Amazing. The controls are amazing. The graphics are amazing. I like how they changed things a little bit. Like they changed the map kind of a little bit, and like a lot of, of the fundamental things, but it was like familiar enough that if you played the other ones, like you would get what was going on.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying, I think, and I think like if you play Resident Evil 4, the original one right now, it's definitely still a little bit clunky, but like it's less clunky than Silent Hill 2.
Yeah, it's not like those old Silent Hill games. Like Resident Evil 2, the remake, I think is like borderline a perfect video game. I think Resident Evil 2 remake is amazing.
I haven't played it. I gotta play it.
It's fantastic. I love Resident Evil is one of my favorite game series. I love it. But the original Resident Evil 2, I just don't like the way it plays. I like the concept of the sort of like fixed camera angles and stuff like that. I think that's cool, but I just, after playing the remake, it's like, okay, no, that's better. That's better.
Yeah.
But I am glad that you brought up Scrapyard, because I definitely wanted to talk about it, in terms of like electronic music, because I know that the, Scrapyard being your most recent project, I know that it's kind of a love letter to your earliest musical endeavors. So what was the process of making that album, making Scrapyard, and how has your creative process and perspective on music changed, maybe electronic music changed from then to this point where you're making a project inspired by what you started out as?
I think when I was making it, I kind of was like going through a bit of like creative turmoil where I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was, like I said, I was kind of getting sick of what I was doing. And I was having a lot of trouble recording too. Like I didn't record anything for like 5 or 6 months, which is like the longest stretch that I've never recorded music, and it really fucked with my brain a lot. And I was just like, I feel like I'm like slowing down way too much. I noticed like my numbers were kind of starting to drop, and like it was giving me a lot of anxiety, and it was just kind of like I had to do it like for like my sanity in a way. And like I kind of like I just was thinking back to those early days of making stuff where I was like not concerned with the plays. I was not concerned with like, and I didn't have to worry about like writing lyrics that were like meaningful or like whatever, like, or like whatever it may be. Like I missed that time, and I missed like kind of where my head was at in terms of creativity, because obviously making it your career, like it comes with a lot of things that can kind of change it and can kind of like, make you jaded in a way. So I feel like making Scrapyard was kind of a way for me to travel back in time a little bit and like kind of come at it from a different angle. And, you know, it was just like the concept itself of just like, I'm going to make an album with no vocals was like, and, you know, like, honestly, like there was people in my life that were telling me like, you know, I don't know, like maybe you should like make another name or something. And I was just like, I was considering it. And that's why like I did like the like Emotion Engine, like little like ambient thing. So like those were kind of happening at the same time where I was making a lot of like just straight up ambient stuff. And then a lot of like some kind of dubstep and some kind of like weird electronic things that just didn't really have a home anywhere else. And I kept trying to find like places to put them, and it just wasn't really working out. So then I was like, well, I feel like they could have a home on this project if it was all kind of stuff, you know, similar to this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I ultimately decided I'm like, I'm just going to do it under my name because I don't care. You know, I know it's probably not the smartest thing to do, like in terms of like plays or whatever, but it's like, I feel like that just kind of helped me like let go of that fear a little bit, because I'm like, you know, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's like self-sabotaging in a way, because I mean, people liked it, you know, but there was definitely a lot of people that were like, what the fuck is this? You know, and it didn't really do anything too crazy number wise, which I was kind of expecting. But I'm also just like, the people that did get it were like, dude, this is really sick. And like, I've never really heard anything like this before. And I'm like, okay, well, at least if some people get it, that's all that matters.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you know, it's your music. See, I fully agree with having it on, you know, your main account, your sort of like under Shinigami. I think I think it's introducing people to that sound if they hadn't previously heard it. And I think in terms of accessibility, like it makes sense, even if it doesn't do as well, like you're still pushing this out there, you know, a work that you're proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I am still like super proud of it. And like a lot of the like things that I'm adding to, you know, cause like I'm trying to kind of like blend like heavier stuff with songs similar to like Cue the Fall.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like the kind of breaky, slower ambient stuff. I'm just like, I really love that. It reminds me a lot of like, I think a lot, you know, the inspiration for a lot of that is like from Silent Hill. In a lot of the games from that time. And, you know, I would not have now I have like a formula, I guess, for it. So like when I want to add that to a song that I'm working on, like I have that kind of in my back pocket, which is really nice. And yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for making that project. And, you know, I also just think like it's, you know, overall, it was just really nice. I feel like it literally did what it had to do, because like as soon as I kind of like finished that, like I got inspiration to start recording again. And like I kind of like was starting to get a better understanding of like where I wanted to take things. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, sorry, what's up?
No. I was just saying yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say over the years, you know, you've worked closely with sort of this revolving door of collaborators. You know, you've worked a lot with Billy Martin. In the past, you've worked with like artists like Fatsy and others. You know, how has working closely with other artists, you know, on these sort of collaborative efforts, you know, impacted the way that you view your art? And, you know, what are some memorable collaborations for you? Something that you look back upon and be like, oh, that's really good, or like that was just really fun to make.
When it comes to like, I guess like the era that I was making a lot of stuff with like Fatsy and like 93, I was just kind of going there, you know, every couple of months, basically. And sorry, that was really a really loud motorcycle just drove by.
Oh, I didn't even hear it.
Okay. Yeah, we kind of like, there was this one particular time that I went that we made like Vengeance, we made Respect, and like a bunch of stuff that like never came out, unfortunately. But I would say like that was like one of my fondest memories, collaborating, because it's like we were in person and like it was just like we were like a fucking factory. Like it was just like nonstop. It was like we'd make it one song, boom, next. All right, what's the next thing? Like let's keep going. Like let's keep going. We were just like smoking mad weed, drinking like this like THC lemonade,
Oh,
just getting
nice.
super fucked up and just like and just going crazy.
I mean,
And
I remember when all of those songs were coming out, it was like every week, like on one of your three's pages, there would be like a song with all three of you on it. Just like you had to find whose page it was on, 'cause it was like once a week.
yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. And like, yeah, I definitely look back on those times like very fondly, and like, I'm grateful to have been able to experience collaboration in that way. And it kind of like, it's like now that I've experienced that, it's like much harder for me to like do things through the internet because it's just like not the same.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I get like, people have to do it out of necessity, and like, I mean, I still do it sometimes. Like the other thing that I was going to bring up, was Biomachina. And, we did that fully remote. Obviously it was like, all right, COVID, it was
Yeah.
lockdown still. And like, Billy is like, he's a family man, he's got a wife and kids, and he's in California, and I'm in New York. And, that was the only way that we were going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And like, but it was still like, I would say that we got as in depth with it as we possibly could, like doing shit on Discord and just like constantly sending stuff back and forth and just keeping that like at the forefront of my mind and trying not to get too distracted. And when I was getting really stressed out and like, having trouble writing, he was helping me coach me through it, and like super grateful, and I would say like now, like at this point in my life, like he's definitely, a mentor like figure, because, I think that the way that, he has kind of like, continued to do music and also pivoted to doing other things. Like he's, he does like illustrations for like comic books, which is like really fucking awesome,
Yeah.
I definitely look up to him a lot as like, like definitely like as I get older, I'm like a little bit scared because I'm like, I don't want to be like the older guy that's like still trying to like chase something,
Yeah.
like chase my youth, I guess, but it's like not to say that I want to stop making music, but I think that like kind of the way that he operates and the way he does things is like very graceful and very, respectable. And, I kind of would want to see myself in a similar position. So it's like being able to work with somebody like that, you could look up to, not only musically, obviously he's in fucking Good Charlotte. I mean, that's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I'm still like, it means a lot that he fucks with me to that extent, but also just like on some human shit. Like, I just think he's like a really good person. And I think that like, music, being in the music industry can like tear you apart, and it can ruin your life if you allow it to. I've seen it happen with people in my life. I've seen it happen to people that I, looked up to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always kind of been like something that was like scary to me. But seeing him and, seeing that like, you don't have to allow it to do that. You don't
Yeah.
have to go down that route. And you also don't have to be like someone that's like trying to live in the past, like,
Yeah.
I
It's
think
like you
that
see
like,
him and you're like, it's possible.
yeah. And like, the fact that he wants to work with like newer artists and stuff, it's just like, that's like the mentality that like I have and I want to have as I get older, just like, not trying to, aging gracefully, but also like, staying in touch with
Yeah.
what's going on, and like, showing support to like newer people that are coming up. I think that's all like really important to me.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's important you kind of have this sort of like balanced dynamic where it's like you are shifting with like your changing lifestyle as you get older. As you said, like Billy's a family man, like he has other priorities in his life now, maybe than just doing music all the time frantically. But then also at the same time, being in touch with what is new and up and coming, and sort of supporting that as you were once supported. I think I think that's really cool, and I think that's really respectable. And shifting gears a little bit, I have two more questions for you, or more like 2.5.
Okay.
But shifting gears a little bit, you've done a pretty good number of live performances at this point. You toured with Nothing Nowhere in 2018. There was the Where Are All My Friends tour in 2019, and then you recently performed at Emo Rave as well. What were your first live performances like, and how has your sort of approach to it changed over time?
It's a very good question.
Thank you.
So my first time ever performing ever was JV was playing a show with Lil West. And he just like invited me to do a couple songs. I was like so terrified, obviously. And it was like after I had done it, I was like, I have to keep doing this. You know, it was like before I was so scared. And like now I look back and like there's like pictures and like there's some videos, like my friend, my like really close friend from high school like has some videos I think he showed me like not too long ago.
Yeah.
And like I was just standing there so awkwardly, like no type of stage presence. I don't even think there was a stage. I think I was just like in front of a table.
Nice.
Like a folding table. And yeah, so that was the first time. And then, you know, from there I was like, I was starting to get over the discomfort. And then the first like real show that I played, that like had my name on it and stuff was summer 2017, I think. And it was at Trans Picos in New York. And it was with, I'm trying to remember the lineup. I know it was like Cold World Gang. It was Refugee Boys, me, and I think FM.
Okay.
Or I think he might have just played a couple songs with Jizza. I'm not. Yeah. Someone has a flyer. Somebody has a flyer. But that was the first one that was like my first actual show. And then, you know, it was kind of crazy because it was like that was the summer that I graduated high school. And then that following year, I think it was 2018, March 2018. I'm really bad with the dates. But yeah, 2018, that was the first Nothing Nowhere tour. Or not the Nothing Nowhere tour.
Yeah.
I got confused with the Where All My Friends tour. That was the first tour that I went on. That was the Nothing Nowhere tour. So it was like I had only played like 2 or maybe 3 shows. Because I think in between that, I think I played Emo Night Day. I can't remember if that was before or after. I think it was before. Honestly, a lot of that time is like a blur at this point. I was like 18.
That was a while ago, yeah.
Yeah. So but you know, regardless, I'd only played a handful of shows before I went on a tour, and it was like, you know, I think that like most people that go on tour, it's like usually not very glamorous, and there's usually not a lot of people coming to all the shows. And
So
it
I've
was
heard.
like, you know, yeah, we've had, you know, there was a couple sold out shows. And it was like to be thrust into that, like immediately is like such a blessing. And like, you know, I'm so grateful to Joe and, you know, like to his team for allowing me to go on that tour. Cause it was really like, you know, that was the first time that like I had like seen other parts of the country. Like I never left New Jersey. Like, I mean, I went to like New York, obviously. And like, I had been like, you know, down south to like visit my family and stuff like that. But like, I had never been to all these places and like going around the country. And like, we went to Canada and like, it was just like to be like literally fresh out of high school and to like experience all that. And to like, you know, meet the people that are like allowing me to fucking make a living, you know? Priceless. And like, you know, it was also a really good way for me to like kind of get my bearings straight in terms of performing and to like get comfortable. You know, it's like exposure therapy.
Yeah.
It's like, I was so scared. I almost said no. Like I almost said no to going on the tour because I'm like, I don't think I'm prepared for this. Like, I don't even like, I don't know. Like, it was just really scary. And like, you know, I was going to be away from home for the longest I've ever been away from home, you know? So like there was a couple of days where, you know, I cried a lot.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, like my cat that I had since like, you know, I was like 4 years old passed away while I was on tour.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really tough on me, you know, and like I miss my family a lot and you know, so kind of those aspects of it were a little bit difficult for me, but you know, it was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And I'm also glad that I was able to kind of like get that, like, I don't know, kind of get the like, I was never big on like partying. Like I don't really drink like that. Like
Yeah.
I just kind of smoke. I don't really do. Um, hello?
You there?
Yeah, I
Oh,
don't know
okay.
what that was.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways.
Shit, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I was never super big on partying, but you know, it was just kind of the vibes of like, you know, we're hanging out, drinking a couple beers, getting a little silly, you know, like hanging out with people that we're meeting at shows and stuff, and you know, different friends the collaborators that like lived in different places, and you know, kind of just like getting that out of my system when I was
Yeah.
young, I feel like was a good thing because I definitely got sick of it very shortly after. And then, you know, we had the and you know, that tour, it was great. But, you know, there were still a lot of dates that like we had to like sleep in vans, sleep in the van, you know, sleep in like parking lots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which like I hated that so much.
I don't blame you.
Fucking horrible showering at truck stops and my slides, and it was like losing clothes and shit is all over the place. So, but you know, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like, you know, the experiences and the camaraderie. It was awesome, but like also like it's disgusting.
Like logistically, it's a mess.
Vile. It's vile. Like it's like you have like 5 stinky men in a van. Everyone's feet and ass stinks because we're not showering, and like we're sweating so much from playing shows and then like sleeping in the clothes that it was disgusting. It was horrible. That in that sense. And then like the Where All My Friends tours, both of them were like a lot more comfortable because we kind of set it up to where like I was like, dude, I don't even care if I make that much money off the tour. I just don't want to fucking sleep in the van.
Yeah.
I want to get Airbnbs. I want to get hotels. If it has to come out of my pay, you know, we decided that if it has to come out of our payments, then it is what it is. Because like I would rather that than like suffer in that way.
Yeah.
Just because like I'm very like, I don't know. I realized at that time like how much like sensory issues I have, and just like feeling dirty and feeling gross. It like was like driving me crazy. Like maybe more so than some other people. Like some people might not be bothered by that much, but it really was like a lot for me. So like we kind of decided that was going to be the best route, you know? And so it was much more comfortable, much more smooth, also much more, I feel like, you know, it felt good to go on a tour, and it was kind of like our thing. Obviously being able to support Nothing Nowhere was like amazing because I was also very inspired by him. You know, he was like a big inspiration for me to kind of get into the type of music I was making at that time. But like, it was nice to be able to be like, this is our tour. And, you know, we sold out LA. It was like 400 something people. That was crazy. And yeah, it's just like that, you know, that was also, I feel like kind of like the peak of everything. It was like a really good time to tour. And yeah, I would say that, you know, those 2 tours were like beautiful, amazing. And yeah, I'm super grateful to kind of have that under my belt. I am kind of, you know, at this point in my life, I'm not, just because, you know, logistically, money wise, and also, you know, it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah.
Mentally, I'm like not as down to tour now. I'm not saying that I'm never going to do it ever. It just kind of has to be the right situation because, you know, it's pretty bad right now. I would say, you know, obviously I think everyone is struggling a little bit at the moment. And, you know, I think we're still feeling the effects of COVID, obviously, you know, in terms of like
for sure.
Live performances and the prices with everything. It's just a lot. But yeah, I'm super grateful to have been able to experience those things. Cause
Yeah.
like, you know, a lot of people don't get the chance to do that. And yeah, it was,
Yeah.
certainly a time.
I mean, I did, you know, my first show ever like last month. It was one show, and pretty much all I had to do was show up. You know, it's not like I sort of bared the responsibilities of getting things together, and like I was still like, oh my god, this is so much. This is so much to deal with. It was amazing. I had the time of my life, but still, it's like, oh my god, this is like a thing that I'm doing, and there's so many moving parts.
Yeah, it's like getting merch if you're gonna bring merch and having it sent and like, you know,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and then having someone to do the merch and you got to count it out, and then you got to count it out after, and then, you know, it's like the way that I do merch is like, you know, the company I work with like fronts it to me, so then it's like I have to like figure out how much I'm gonna send them back.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot. It's a lot for sure.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you so much for coming on. I have one more question for you. And during every interview, I don't know how good of an idea this is, but during every interview, I have like one kind of like big question that like kind of makes the artist think.
Okay.
Maybe just because I'm mean, I have no idea why I do this. But this is yours. You know, as we've talked, you and your art has been in the public eye for quite a while now. Maybe more than half of a decade. You know, over the years, garnering millions of streams and evolving with this sort of ever-changing landscape of music. And many would refer to you as sort of like a veteran of underground music. So some people would call you that. So I guess my question is, what changes, for better or for worse, do you see going on in the music industry right now that's just different from when you were coming up as a newer artist?
This is a very good question. I would say I definitely think it's in a worse spot. Overall. I mean, streaming, how much you're getting paid for streams is going down every year. You know, there's a chart you can look up like how much it's kind of tanking, unfortunately. But it's like from like I started getting my first checks from music, I think probably like 2018, maybe 2017. No, it was 2017. From then to now, it's like I look at like what the numbers were then, or like, you know, what the how much you were getting paid per stream was then to now, it has dropped significantly. Like that's one thing. And I also just think like the way it's unfortunate that like, you know, we're all so reliant on on social media and stuff like that, and how like, you know, the algorithms and things kind of just change without you knowing. And it's not like, you know, these companies are going to give you a breakdown on how these things change, you know. It kind of just happens, and then you're kind of just left to like adapt, but you're kind of adapting based on like very, very limited information. And just kind of, you know, that's kind of been the biggest thing for me is like, you know, when I first started out, it's like I wasn't trying to promote myself. I really wasn't. Like, and, you know, I feel like I was spoiled in that way. And, you know, it kind of like more recently, you know, it's been kind of tough to accept that, and because like, you know, it's like when TikTok started coming out and kind of taking over as like the, you know, main source, I guess, of like, you know, people being exposed to new music and new artists and kind of artists coming up through TikTok.
Yeah.
I was very confused. Honestly, I was very confused. And like, it was like around that time, it's kind of like, you know, when I started to withdraw from like, you know, I don't really, you know, I'm not out here like taking fit pics and shit like every day. And like,
yeah, I mean, it's much more aggressive now in terms of
and it's like
what you have to do.
Yeah, it's like I used to just be able to like, you know, I don't know, to promote a song, I would just like make a trailer or something. And like, you know, I got sick of that, and I kind of started to feel like I'm like, you know, it's the kind of like fully understanding and realize like you're being perceived, and like you have these people like watching you, and like I started to kind of really like reject that aspect of it, you know, which definitely hurt me, because it's like, you know, like you said, it's like, it's much more aggressive now. It's like, you have to like put your face everywhere, and like, you have to, you know the like TikTok hacks and like the hooks to like get people to like stop and actually watch the video and like all that stuff. And, you know, I'm trying to become, you know, more like, I'm becoming more open to it. And in terms of like, I understand now that like, you know, you don't have to do it in a cringe way. Like I was like, just like, that's like the main thing is I was like, I don't want to be cringe. I don't want people to think I'm cringe. I don't want people to make fun of me.
Yeah.
Because it's like also, but you know, that's also something I had to deal with personally, because it's like, that's coming from me, like honestly, like judging others, because it's like, I'm seeing something I think is cringe and I'm like, oh my God, this is so whack. This is so cringe. Like this, what are they doing? You know, but it's like, what, it doesn't really matter that much, you know, first of all. And second of all, like, there's always going to be someone that thinks you're cringe, even if you never even put your face out there. They could just like listen to your song and think you're cringe or whatever. Yeah. Like that's unavoidable. You know,
cringe is subjective.
Exactly. You know, and I'm trying to like not be so like, I don't know. I feel like I was like judgmental of myself because I was judgmental of others, which is a very, you know, ugly trait to have. But to go back into the, you know, direction of what you're asking, I think like, it's much harder now to kind of just come up, you know, from someone that's like starting from zero, you know, and it's crazy because it's like, I feel like it's even just as hard for someone that already kind of has some momentum going to keep that momentum going and to like gain new fans, because it's like Instagram and Twitter, which were kind of like my main methods of like, you know, promotion, if you would even call it that, like, because like I said, like, you know, at the very beginning, I wasn't coming up with like marketing schemes or anything. I was literally just posting my music and like posting a picture of myself and like the cover art and like calling it a day, you know? I feel like it's just as hard for someone that, you know, already has something going on and, you know, someone that is starting from zero to kind of gain more traction, you know, using like TikTok and Reels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think, you know, maybe that's because I feel that way because I'm a little bit older. And, you know, I think like the younger kids maybe like don't feel that way, you know, and they maybe are probably a little bit more comfortable doing those things because those were kind of around when they were younger. So it's like kind of the same way as like, you know, when I was 13, 14, 15, it was like Instagram and Twitter. And so like, I kind of just stuck to that, you know? And I also just think like, I was watching this video cause I saw like, it was like a response to like Juicy J saying that like rap music sales are down 40%, which I don't know. I haven't done the full research to like speak on whether that statement itself
that seems like
factual.
A really drastic drop. I feel like...
and I mean it might be I'm not too sure, but the kind of like I saw someone kind of respond to that and being like, you know, like a lot of people are struggling right now, like a lot of people are struggling and they like, it's like music is a luxury at the end of the day, like it's like it's not a necessity. And I'm there, you know, there's some people that like probably, you know, some artists that might have a really hard time like accepting that, but like that's just the reality. Like, you know, the world does not revolve around us. It does not revolve around music. You know, if people have to like not go to shows and not buy merch and, you know, not listen to music as much because they have to work more to make money and use the money that they were going to spend on that shit to like sustain their livelihood, then like, you know, that's what it is. That's where the world is at right now, you know? And it's like honestly that has, but you know, because when like, I definitely noticed that like in the past few years, like, you know, my overall numbers have kind of like dropped a significant amount. And I, you know, there's some days that I struggle with it more than others, but like, I think kind of just like, you know, it's not always you. It's like, it's not your fault. Like, I thought it was my fault. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm falling off. Like people don't like the music that I'm making. And like, or maybe I'm not being active enough. And like, you know, whatever it was, I was kind of blaming myself, but it's like, you know, there's other things at play that are bigger than us that are influencing these things and that are influencing people's decisions, people's purchases, you know, and their time, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, kind of understanding that, for me, puts me at ease. I mean, it doesn't make me happy that the world is in this state at all. Obviously it fucking sucks, but it's like, also, it's like, you know, it's life. Like that's just what it is right now, you know? And like, I don't think it's like the end of the world and like, oh my God, we're in turmoil and it's so bad. But I mean, you know, there's other articles too. Like there's that one article where like these like music industry people were talking about how they can't break artists anymore and, you know, whatever. But I think that, you know, the other side of this, aside from just like kind of world related issues and the economy and things that kind of influence people's purchases and stuff like that, I think the other side of it is just that, like, I think the music industry is very outdated. I think, you know, on a corporate level, I think it's very outdated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of people that think they know what they're doing and they don't know what they're doing. And there's a lot of really, really good people in the music industry. And like, I don't want to, you know, I don't have the mentality of like, you know, fuck the whole
like
industry, fuck everybody.
There's no good people. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there are good people and there are good people that have helped me out and that, you know, like continue to help me out. Like, and I'm super grateful for them, to have found people that are not fucking scumbags. But I mean, there also is a lot of scumbags. I have been, you know, disrespected, fucked over for money many, many times. And that's just my experience. There's other people that have definitely had it way worse. And I think that kind of trickles down to the fact that, like, you know, these people are just trying to make money. And, you know, when you, I think since we kind of moved into the internet age of music, I think that is when, you know, these labels have kind of started to lose their power. And I think it's just like much more apparent now. Because you know, it's like most of the time they're signing people that already have like millions of streams or like hundreds of thousands of listeners or whatever it is.
Just some sort of like pre-existing foundation following, whatever.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, I feel like the primary benefit of labels, you know, back when they were kind of required in a sense, was like artist development and like, you know, that kind of side of things that like, I feel like they're just not like doing, or they're just like not good at anymore for whatever reason. I don't have too much experience and insight into the inner workings of the industry on a corporate level. So I can't speak with full, you know, certainty that is the case. That's just kind of my perspective and how I'm seeing things. And, you know, also based on the information that's kind of coming out from people that work in the industry. But, you know, and I think it's also because, like, you know, there's a lot of fucking like nepotism and shit in the industry where it's like someone's uncle works at a label. So like now they're an A&R, but it's like, what the fuck do they really know about music? They don't really know anything about music, you know? And it's like, they're the ones that, you know, it's like a lot of those people are the ones that have the connections to like the higher ups. And, you know, they're kind of just taking people that already have success and, you know, they can inflate that. But it's like the only reason they can inflate that is because they have the money to put into ads and to put into promo and stuff like that, like, you know, a lot of people don't have access to, you know? So, yeah, I just think I think there has to be some type of shift.
Yeah.
And I don't quite know what that is, you know, because.
But it's something.
Yeah, because it's like, you know, we're still kind of shackled to these, you know, even if you choose not to go that route of like signing or working in a more like official sense of like working in the industry, it's just like, I feel like the way the, you know, social media can, things can kind of just like drop beneath your feet.
Yeah,
You just won't know.
It's all very volatile. It's all, very sort of like by chance. Even if you, do sort of subscribe to this, philosophy of like aggressive promotion and sort of like doing whatever you can to find ends. Like it's still even with all that work, it's still very much very random almost.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
It's all odd, but that's the time that I have. Thank you so much for just giving your thoughts on a lot of different things. You've been a fantastic interviewee, and that's gonna be it. Where can people find you?
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. You can find me on Instagram at 1GXLeader, on Twitter at I Hate Shinigami. And then my TikTok is 1GXLeader, and I'm on streaming as Shinigami.
There we go. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.